This is First Contact, Stories of the Call Center.
When you go remote, and we heard a lot about it during the pandemic, as there was concerns around security, being compliant, data protection, staying in the realm of compliance for regulatory outcomes. How did you, when you went down that path, did you run into scenarios where people were like, man, people are remote, they're at home, what about my data? How does this stay secure? Talk to us about what you went through if you went through those types of discussions and how you handled them.
Yeah. So yes, we did. And I anticipated that being a question. I always kind of, I don't want to throw too much salt on the brick and mortar game, but I always went back to, people are like, how do you manage and how do you do this? And I was like, okay, I'm an insider. Let's be honest. Most of this stuff is not being done the way it's presented anyway. And most of it's not working. Okay. It works from a compliance standpoint when you get a stamp from a SOC certificate that you've put in place for a week or two before you change everything back. And things like that. Like that's what most of these companies do. And I'm not pointing fingers. There's some that do really well and they're by the book and they're great businesses. So I'm not lumping the whole industry, but let's not pretend it was working. I think that's my first conversation with people. For us, it was about saying, okay, what are the needs by project? Because we're remote and because we're not on-prem, we can actually fractionalize parts of our business and say, okay, this project needs this security, this type of interface, this type of connectivity, and we build that into the financial model, we build it into the build-out model, and we build that in with our technologies built. So we first evaluate. We're a huge discovery group. Like we want to understand your business and your business's requirements and needs, and then what we do, and our job is to build out a framework that protects your brand on the front end. And that's part of brand protection, part of brand slaughter too. There's decisions that people make that they unknowingly expose their customer bases. That would be an example, right? So we want to make sure that we understand your business from a technology standpoint and work with your IT team to meet whatever guidelines need to be met to keep those things secure. So we went out and brought in what we feel like is a pretty decent IT team that continues to grow. And I shouldn't say decent, they're great guys and girls. They're fantastic. But we wanted that to be a strong part of us. We knew that was going to be a massive piece of our business. So we wanted to find some people. We got Glenn on the team and a few other people like JoJo that we really feel strongly are really, really great at what they do. But again, it goes back to just that customization around each project and what needs to be done. And there were some that after we looked at what needs to be done and they looked at it and the pricing that would have to go into place, and maybe even development or something like that. So sometimes, and it's only happened once or probably 2 times in 5 years, we had to say, this doesn't make sense. Both of us. Like we looked at it and said, this doesn't make sense. We have to price this. Takes us out of the competitive market space that you're even evaluating us for, right? And even though we feel like we do a better job than anybody else, at the end of the day, it still comes down to dollars and cents, right? Like you've got to be able to put it into a bucket that makes financial sense to your client. So for us, that was the big piece, just making sure that we understand and are dialed in on. And that was another reason we looked at NobleBiz when we said, okay, for outbound campaign, a lot of compliancy things that are changing all the time. We can't keep up with all that. We keep up with what we can. We need a partner that helps us keep up with it, right? So for that piece, that was another, chunk there that really helped us acquire some clients, and it still continues to, because we can go in and say, well, we've already got X, Y, and Z covered, right? From a technology protection, a data protection standpoint, a compliance standpoint. So anyway, I know that's not really granular, but it really is different by client. I'll tell you, we have financial clients, we have telemedicine clients who are dealing with HIPAA. We have insurance clients, so I mean, there's a good gamut of stuff that we've got to be compliant with from a data security and access security standpoint. So anyway, it's a big chunk of what we have to continually work on and evolve.